Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. I'm excited and honored to welcome to the show Dr. Barbara Dalle Pezza. Did I get that right, Barbara?
That's awesome. You did it very
Okay.
well.
Barbara is an internationally recognized coach, leadership development expert, and she's the author of the book called The Unexpected Gift. Welcome to the show, Barbara.
Thank you so much for having me here. It is a pleasure and an honor, Alan.
So tell us a little bit about your background. What kind of got you interested? What was it about the leadership, the coaching industry that went just kind of rewind to that moment where you're like, "Hey, that's an industry that I think I would do really well in." What was it? What was that kind of
Actually,
scenario?
Alan, there was not such a moment because it was very natural for me. And let me tell you a story. So, my great grandmother, she was called the wise of the village, the wise one. And so she was from a small village in Italy. I'm Italian originally. And so people from the village will go to her and they would ask her for advice and her thoughts on matters for their families or the village. And I think that I somehow have a similar gift because when I was in my 20s, my friends, without knowing about my great grandmother, would do the same with me. And for me, it has been always very, very natural to care about my friends at the time and wanting to contribute to them. And since they would ask me for advice or ask for my opinion, and I would give it, that naturally and organically translated into my passion for helping and contributing to the lives of others. So I think that that's actually what moved me to the coaching profession eventually. That at that time, when I was in my 20s, I didn't know it existed as a
Yeah.
profession. Once I discovered it, I was like, oh, that's good. So that's what it is. So I think I'm good at that. And
You're
so
like you're like, so there's this career where I get to help people, right? Which is what I was doing before I knew that such a career existed.
exactly. That's exactly it. So once I discovered and I knew that there was a career that I could build around that, then I of course deepened my understanding and my learning and studies and all that I needed to do in order to be a professional that can actually leverage that gift to contribute to the people's life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there there are a bunch of different industries, pretty much every industry, depending on the heart of the person, where you can help people. And and it's okay. I think it's okay to provide a good service at a reasonable price, right? A lot of people, I was just talking to my brother last night actually, and he has a small photography business, and he's talking about how he gives away 50 to 60% of his work. He just gives it away for free. And I think it's okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara. I think it's okay for us to provide a good service and help people and charge for it.
I totally agree. There is actually, I think that it is good also for people that ask for our services because that is an element that makes you responsible and own what you want to achieve with your life and with your commitment. And because investments and money for the services are very sensitive, I think that, and I'm speaking from my perspective as a coach, people do need to be committed to what they do. And because people understand money,
That's a
I
great
think that
point.
that is a very important element, not because you want to be greedy, but the value that as a coach you give and the commitment of people that want to invest in the coaching, which is my field, for example, right?
That's
So
a yeah, I think that's a great point because you have to have buy-in. I think is what you're ultimately saying, right? Like um when we're trying to change ourselves, when we're trying to improve, we need a couple of different elements because change is so against who human beings are, right? We want to stay in the same place, we want to be around the same people, we want to think the same things. It's the really successful people are the ones that get comfortable being uncomfortable, comfortable changing. And in order to kind of, I can kind of see that as a little bit of a carrot, right? If you're like, hey, this course costs money, me coaching you costs money. It's not free. And when they put that out there, then it becomes like, okay, well, now I've invested in it. I better actually do something and get some value out of it, right? Because a lot of what you're doing, you can kind of lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? And so they're
Absolutely.
going to have to go through some of those processes on their own, and making them invest something, at least the money up front, and then time, effort, energy, emotion down the road is what really allows them to change.
Yeah. Yes, and also because the work that I do, it is not easy. It is tough because I like to go deep, because change and transformation happens when we change the way we think, when we are aware of how we see ourselves, when we are aware and we know what we believe in and what moves us. And so it is something that, as you say, change is difficult because once you have changed, things are different,
Right.
situations are different, you are not in the same place, and therefore you need to be open to what is doesn't feel like something that's familiar to you. And investing the money, as said before, helps you in those moments because it does give you responsibility. It does give you back your power, actually, because I have put some value, the money into this, and now I'm asked to transform. And this is tough. And somehow having invested brings it together and really motivates me at the first level. After that, after the
Right.
first motivation, then you need to be really committed and you really need to be highly motivated to transform, and you really want it. You do need to want to move to the next level in your life. Otherwise it is not worthy. It is better if you keep your money and we
Yeah.
don't waste the time.
Yeah, and I think, you know what? I think there's some great parallels between this example of, hiring a coach and starting a business, right? Most of my listeners, they're either entrepreneurs that are already in a successful business trying to get it to the next level, or they are people that are on the cusp, really ready to take the next step, take that leap, and pull the trigger with their business. But this is a great example, right? Because they get to this point and they're like, okay, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? And when they start spending money, that's a very early thing to do. One of the first things you do is you start getting bank accounts, you start getting logos, stuff like that, start getting a website, you're investing money, and there's more money investment up front in terms of a ratio than time, right? But then over the next few years, then it's more of a time. Then you're investing. It's not just money anymore. Now you're investing your time, your emotions, your energy, all of these things, and you wouldn't have done that unless in the beginning you invested some money. And so sometimes I use this analogy of how you got to burn your boats, right? You really have to put yourself out there, because as an entrepreneur, it's easy to quit. It is.
And if I may add, Alan, it is also a way for you actually to already move to the next level. You want to commit to the coaching, you want to do the experience, you want to transform and change. So investing the money to do that already, if it is uncomfortable for you, already moves you to a next level. So you are already operating, acting, and experiencing what you're looking for, because it stretches you, right? And I think that is very important. If I think about my own story, I invested money that was not comfortable for me to invest, for studying, for becoming better as a professional, for doing masters, for doing courses, certifications. And it has not always been easy. Actually, I remember the first time I invested an amount of money that was beyond what I thought was my possibility. And yet I thought, well, if I ask my client to leap into a different dimension, let me do that. Let me start with my own experience. And so I did. And it is amazing how when you stretch yourself, even just with that, and as said, money is a sensitive element in people's lives. When you do that, then the perspective changes, your motivation is stronger, your focus is there. And that's what you need to actually start an amazing coaching process. And
Yeah.
especially if you want to grow as a leader.
Yeah, that's fantastic. with entrepreneurs, change is inevitable, right? We evolve or we die. Our businesses, ourselves. When we start investing in ourselves, I think that like taking that step means a lot. It means a lot to ourselves because we're like, look it, I'm good enough to do this. Entrepreneurs, we suffer a lot from the imposter syndrome. No matter what level we get to, we're like, we don't belong here. Even you have a multi-year, multi-million dollar successful company, you still feel like, man, how it was luck or whatever. But as you invest in yourself, then you're saying, okay, you know what, no, I deserve this. I'm good enough. Like, I've had a lot to do with our success. um I'm going to fast forward to a point in a scenario with somebody that you work with. Okay, we already know what they need to work on, and now they're in the position where they have to start doing things and making deliberate change. What are things that you're telling them that convince them or persuade them to get outside their comfort zone, to do things they really don't want to do, to change? How do you as a coach kind of get them moving in the right direction with change?
What I would say with respect of this question is that I am not persuading anybody. What I am helping them doing is to actually recognize their purpose and their motivation and find their own reason for wanting to transform and change. So if they came to me and if they are working with me, it's because already they sensed that they wanted to change. Now that they have to do it, what I help them doing is explore and discover the deeper root and purpose why they are going to actually go through with the transformation and the change. I am definitely not bringing in any persuasion or no, I'm helping them to find their own absolutely powerful why, and that's what will move them. It's not, I'm just a, a channel, if you want,
Yep.
right? Where they can actually see through, or I help them see and discover that. So that's all their power. That's what moves them. It's not the coach. Uh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I
No, I
like
love
to say,
that. I love that concept, right? Because the greatest motivations, the greatest purpose that we have, they come from within. People don't give them to us. And in today's day and age with social media and everything, we think that the likes and the comments and the follows and the recognition and the acclamation and all this stuff is what motivates us. And that's temporary, right? That's like sugar in our diet, right? It feels good for the moment, but it doesn't give us the nutrition, the motivation that we need. And so what are some of the things, what are some of the questions you're asking, Barbara, that are helping individuals find their motivation, that are helping them dig deep inside to want to change?
well, I always ask many questions. I am a philosopher before being a coach, so questioning is my something I really love. So, what I ask them about what is important for them, what is that they value, and what is that they actually believe in about themselves, about their lives, how do they see themselves. So what I do in my questions, like these ones, right, then you need the context to be more specific with the questions. But what
Right.
I do, if I may use a metaphor,
Hmm.
let's imagine a watch, a Patek Philippe, because it's beautiful. Right, and they have this beautiful glass, and you can see at the back, you can see the engine, and the engine on the watch, they are beautiful, they are very detailed, they are clear oiled, so to speak, they move smoothly, right? So with my questions, what I do, I help them identify those inner engines, those tiny little pieces, so that they work well together. They discover which pieces is inside, what is so essential for them. And once there is, I call this inner transparency, once I help them with my questions, And again, they will become specific questions once there is a context, right? But the goal is to help them have this clarity and this inner transparency as to what moves them and what actually move them forward. And then once they see that and once they recognize it, that's done. That's that's done basically. Then we go into, okay, now we take action, but first here it is, your motivation. That's what moves you. We explore, we expand that as well. And it is amazing how, from my experience, when people actually start to see, identify, sense, feel those engines, then everything become easier. The change and transformation that we said before we tend to resist is something that actually you want to move forward and toward.
Right.
So it's beautiful. It is really powerful, and I love the experience that I see them going through.
I love this concept of introspection and kind of looking inside, because a lot of the motivational experts, business coaches, things like that, they kind of a common theme is that as individuals, we want to be consistent with who we believe we are, right? If we believe we're an entrepreneur, we act like an entrepreneur would act. If we believe that we're a good person, we're going to act like we would believe a good person would act. And as we do this introspection and we find out, well, who am I? Like, what do I believe in? Right? Some of those questions that you're asking, what do I value? What are the things? What are the most important elements of my life? Then we can kind of learn like what we can do to be consistent with those ideas and feelings that we have about ourselves.
Yes, and we can also see where we are limiting ourselves, right? Because the idea that we have about who we are might not be our own idea. It might be that we never explored it, and it is an idea that we have had since we were kids, and now we don't realize that maybe we need to upgrade that concept of who we are, that we are constantly expanding and a work in progress. And therefore, with the questioning, then you discover, oh, wait a minute, I am also that. I never thought about it. And so from that expanded idea, what what do I see differently? What can I imagine differently? What can I vision for myself? So it is the idea of going deeper, a little bit deeper. If you're an entrepreneur, of course, you are interested in results and in getting your business growing and developing what's possible. And at the same time, in order to do this, you do need to expand the way you think, not only
Yes.
about business, but also about yourself. And I help my clients seeing kind of the box we are all in, and transforming that box, like expanding, like pushing the walls so that we can actually enlarge it and expand and introduce new elements, update it and upgrade it, and possibly really open it up so that there are no impossibilities, right? Anything becomes possible. And that's what I love, to at least for people, entrepreneurs, any individuals, to think that anything is possible, and the limitation is really just the box we are in, and the kind of thoughts and the kind of mental mindset, the mental map that we have, that's our limitation. And so I want them to see that, and then they can decide how to expand. If they want to expand, maybe they say, no, you know what, that's fine, I am okay with that. I just want you to be aware that's where you stand.
Yeah, and I think that it's very common for entrepreneurs, for business owners to have these limiting beliefs, and they're so hard to break through sometimes, right? And I think a great tactic, a great strategy for that is a lot of the things that you were saying along those same lines of, first of all, believing, anything's possible, right? and and anything's possible for individuals. And people think they have these limited beliefs. They think, oh, I was born in this situation, I grew up in that situation, I don't have the education, I don't have the financial means. And they, as opposed to creating the top 10 list of the reasons why they can or should do something, they create the top 10 reasons why they shouldn't or they can't, and then they review those over and over and over, and they focus on those things as opposed to focusing on the reasons why they can. And I think that's a great reason to use somebody to kind of work through this with you, like, hey, no, I understand where you're coming from, but try thinking, you're using the example of a box and thinking outside of the box, right? Getting them kind of out of their comfort zone, and so they're not limited by those beliefs. But geez, Barbara, it's hard sometimes, right? Because we've been having these beliefs, for 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. And nobody said that it is going to be easy. Excuse me. And it is true, it is hard. And if we want to actually transform and have something different in our lives, because that's what we're looking for, we are looking for something that fits better with the idea that in this moment we have about ourselves, with our vision of our life and our business. We don't want to be discouraged, surprised, or um, let go of the opportunity to change just because it is difficult. And especially if you are an entrepreneur, you love challenges. It is
Right.
just a difficult challenge because we are used to, especially if you are entrepreneurs, you are used to think about challenges as something that doesn't pertain to you personally, right? It is
Exactly.
something outside in the business, in the
That's
suppliers,
exactly
or
right.
right.
We
But the
yeah,
biggest,
that's exactly right. We get caught in this, like, hey, I'm a problem solver. I build businesses, I build people, I train people, I hire great people, I create systems, I do all these things. But then when it comes to us, it's like, oh, no, no, no. Right?
yeah,
It's
and
like,
and
that's, I'm not focused on me, I'm focused on my business, right?
yes. And back to the box, it is, when we say thinking outside the box, it seems like really we need to be creative and being innovative. But what I mean is really, first of all, actually become aware that you are within a box. And
Right.
so everything that you experience and you are living is within a
Hmm.
certain box, within a certain bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love to say also, it is as if we need to go around poking bubbles of
Yeah.
people so they can actually become aware and really see that there is so much more than what they are used to experience, feel, and think, right? So it is not just thinking outside the box as in I am creative and innovative. It is being outside the box. So I think, feel, and experience and relate differently. So it's
Right.
a lot.
So, as entrepreneurs are trying to um, kind of focus on their limiting beliefs and overcome them, what are some of the mistakes that you see are made? What are some challenges that they encounter frequently?
In terms of changing their beliefs, their limiting
Yeah,
beliefs.
as they're kind of going through this process, they've identified, hey, okay, here's some of my limiting beliefs, here's some of my objectives and my motivations. These are the things I'm trying to accomplish. What are some mistakes that they make trying to overcome those limiting beliefs, or just getting caught up in the process?
I think that one mistake, I don't know if it is a mistake, but an experience that is often an obstacle, can be an obstacle, is actually moving from being in your head and therefore keep rationalizing whatever you do, who you are. And so keeping the experience in your mind and instead bringing it into your body and into the emotions. So instead of, again, staying in your head, meaning I just keep repeating the same question and the same thoughts and try to solve and trying to say, oh, how can I change this by thinking, just thinking differently. I think that the what is difficult, and it is a level of evolution in terms of how I know myself, is to move from the head into the heart. So actually feel what could be different. So just relying on your mind instead of relying also on your emotions and the sensations of your body whilst you are thinking certain thoughts, right? So what is it? It is not really a mistake, but actually what is an obstacle is to integrate. the work of the mind with the work of the heart and the support of physical sensations.
Yeah, I love this concept, and it actually reminds me a lot of visualizing, right? So I visualize to connect my the exact purpose why I do it is to connect my mind with my emotions, right? My mind with my heart, where I have goals, but then I visualize, okay, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when I'm imagining, some goals, like for example, relationships with my children, like how I want those relationships to be. I imagine myself 10 years down the road. I'll imagine myself looking in the mirror, seeing that I'm aged, I'm 10 years older, seeing my kids. I have a 3-year-old daughter, seeing her at 13, right? How do I feel? How does that make me feel talking to her? How am I talking to her? How is she talking to me? What are we doing how are we spending our time? And so what it's doing is it's kind of allowing me to make decisions about the future right now, right? Have begin with the end in mind, right? But it
Mhm.
also connects my mind with my heart so that I can. It's a lot about not just my goals on paper, but the feeling. How am I going to feel when I achieve those goals?
Yeah. And I think that what you have just described, then I would add also try to imagine the sense of what is around and what is in the space when you will be with your 13
Yes,
year old daughter. So what it does, as you say, it kind of forward the future. It brings it to now so that you expand your now as well with the possibility of the future. And I think that that's exciting, that is inspiring, and it is definitely not boring because it is like a 3D experience that is made with all the human elements, right? We don't need the goggle yet to do
right,
that, or we do need, but we can do it also without that. And I think that that is very powerful because as we know, our brain does not distinguish from what is real and what we are imagining and what is our vision. And so basically, we are bringing closer to us an experience that we can imagine and feel in the future, but that can bring the effect in the present. And I think that that's very powerful. And I think that that gives us a new level of motivation, for example. And we experience that. I'm sure that if you imagine your 13 years old daughter today, the way you move in your environment with her might be different than what you do if you don't imagine that and you don't bring it to today. So back to the idea of changing, and changing is challenging. That could be a way to actually move into the future, bring it back to the
right.
present, and operate from an expanded vision of your present.
Yeah, and I think it helps with motivation because it helps us realize what's at stake, right? Because our world today, we're so concerned with what's happening right now, right? What do I get right now? And I feel like as time goes on, we're less and less willing to sacrifice for the long term. But all the good stuff is the stuff you spend years working on: money, career, relationships, your relationship with God or a spiritual being, right? All of these things, they don't you don't snap your fingers and they happen, right? And so when we visualize, when we think about those things that we need to change and we put it in context of 5, 10 years down the road, we're not making knee-jerk reactions and just doing the easier thing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I would say that by doing this, it helps us to um, bring more gravitas to the present, right? Because as you say, you do
Yep.
have a vision, and the vision is brought into the present, and the present, therefore, gets really more value, more gravitas. It becomes a different substance somehow, and that is very entrenched us as well in the idea we have of who we are and how we operate in our environment. So I think that this is very powerful because we do not know the future, of course, and we do not know what will happen in the future, right? But if we use this visioning you are talking about and we bring it to the present and we let it color, so to speak, our present, then our present become, allow me to say, kind of out of time and
Yeah.
so dense with meaning, and that's what we need. We do need to find meaning in every moment that we live, so that that vision that might or might not happen just because we don't know, but we of course want it to happen, it becomes more substantious, and it colors our reality in such a beautiful way. Powerful motivation.
Yeah, and then we start acting consistently with it, right? And a lot of I think a lot of this is going on subconsciously, where it's like, hey, this is what I want to manifest for myself. These are the relationships, these are the changes that I want to manifest in my life. And I think you're talking through with people about, hey, let's talk about what your motivations are. What are the things that you believe in? What are your personal thoughts about who you are? It allows them to kind of go through that exercise.
Yes, yes, and upgrade, and upgrade their perspective in alignment with their vision, which is what you said before.
Yeah, that's awesome. Barbara, leave us with a couple of closing thoughts. I want you to tell us how people can learn more about all these excellent things that you're doing. I know you have a website out there. I'm interested to get my hands on your book. It looks like it's still in a pre-order phase. Um,
Actually, the book is now available on Amazon. It
mm,
is, as they say, your life story is your leadership story. So actually, it is a memoir that helped me. Actually, I wrote it because are the steps I went through in the past 15 years of my life that was very challenging, and they built actually everything I based my profession on. So I think it is quite an interesting perspective. It is a memoir of my 20
that's
years
awesome.
in
Do you talk a
media.
little bit about your great grandma at all in there?
Not my great grandma, but there is definitely some interesting stories of my
Okay,
Italian past. So
good,
yes,
good.
yes.
So where do people find out more about you, Barbara?
So I am on the social media, of course, LinkedIn with my name, Barbara Dalle Pezza. They can find me there and they can write to me. I'm always very happy to receive emails and questions if they have some. My website also is a good place, www.barbaradallepezza.com. So, and that's it. And then, of course, in my book, I am there, and there are contacts in the book as well. And it is The Unexpected Gift, and it is available on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you spending some time with us. I love talking about, how entrepreneurs can become better versions of themselves, and if nothing else, I want them to take away, this concept of, hey, you have to work on yourself too. You have to work on your business. You have to work on your people. You have to work on development, but don't forget self development. So,
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank
so
you so
thanks so
much.
much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Allan. It was a great, great honor to
My
be here.
pleasure.
If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.